Welcome to the first meeting of the City of Glens Falls Independent Redistricting Task Force. My name is Bob Curtis. I'm the task force chair. Mayor Bill Collins had intended to attend this first meeting. He sends his regrets. He had another meeting to attend to at the last minute. But he, first of all, wanted to thank each of you for joining the task force and volunteering in this effort, and the members of the Common Council did likewise. The Mayor also wanted to ask all of the committee members to try to remain non-political in our thoughts, our actions, our recommendations. I think that as we look at what we are doing here, it is going to be non-political. Before I introduce the task force members, I wanted to thank Zoe Morgan, who is the Deputy City Clerk. Zoe has been on staff since January of this year. She does the meeting minutes for boards and commissions for the Common Council, and she is going to take all the meeting minutes for this group, and thank you, Zoe, for doing that. Also want to give a thank you to Peter Pay Productions. I retired as the city clerk in December of 2021. And if we go back a couple of years to the beginning of COVID-19, when the city was really scrambling to try to comply with open meetings and so forth, Peter came to our rescue. He was a lifesaver. He handled Zoom meetings for us. We had hybrid meetings. We had regular meetings. He never knew from 1 week to the next what kind of a meeting he was going to be handling, but he did it. He did not complain, and we are forever grateful and we're thankful that you are here tonight, Peter. Thank you. I'd like to start by introducing the task force members, and I will go by, actually, the mayor appointed me as the task force chair. The council at large appointed Mary DeSantis as vice chair. Mary, if you have anything you'd like to say to the committee, I'd love to hear.
Well, this is wonderful. I was born and raised in Glens Falls. I've lived here all my life except for when I was in college. I did my undergrad and grad at the College of St. Rose, and I've been a speech therapist for over 30 years. And I worked in preschool for about 6 years. I retired from Shen after 24 years. I bought my house in Glens Falls on Empire Avenue in 2003, and I currently live in the 3rd Ward. I love living in Glens Falls, so I commuted for 30 plus years. Yes, and the winters were quite rough. I'm currently subbing at Shen, so but I try not to sub during the winter. I'm very active. I love to travel, hike, walk. My dad was, Vincent DeSantis was the mayor in 1994 to 1997. And Bob was working as the city clerk at the time. And I know he would be very proud that I'm on this committee. And I feel honored to be asked by Jim Clark, who was my father's assistant at the time. And I look forward to trying to get these numbers within that 10%.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Ward 1, Janet DeMona. Janet.
Hi, I am living in the 2nd ward, but married to a 1st ward guy named Jim DeMano. I had reached out when I read a little bit of information about this task force to Bob, who had already made a decision about asking you to join. And he said, but you know, you don't have to live in the same ward where you're representing or whatever. I didn't know that. So in any case, I talked with Ed Donahue and we know each other also. And he said, you know, I've been talking to a couple people who were born and raised in the east end of town, and I said, well, you know, I'm not that. But anyway, it worked out that here I am, and it just piqued my interest to, you know, get a little bit involved in stuff like this, and I don't think it'll be terribly difficult, and I enjoy, you know, getting information flowing. As far as my history, I moved to Glens Falls in 1980, and that was shortly before I married Jim. And we have 3 kids. I've always been, well, not always, I moved from Syracuse, where I had worked for Bristol Laboratories, always in customer service and admin type positions. And then when I moved here, I worked for GenCap for several years, and we, you know, started raising our family and all. Then I got into independent contracting as more of a marketing type salesperson in various ways. Business owner, small business owner, stuff like that. So I'm kind of anxious to see how this works out, and I'm sure it'll be enjoyable and not that difficult, and make a difference.
Excellent, thank you, Judy. Word 2, Nancy Kelly.
Yes, that's who I am. I still remember that. I do, and I grew up in Glens Falls on Bay Street, and I currently live on Bay Street, 1 block away, in the Rogers Building. I've also lived in Empire Theater, and I was in real estate 44 years, and I owned 14 homes, most of which have been in Glens Falls. I graduated from St. Mary's. I have a bachelor's in education from Plattsburgh. I have a master's from St. Rose in special ed. I have a master's in clinical psychology from St. Joseph's in Rutland. And I've retired from all 3. And I'm delighted. And for several years, I was on the Urban Renewal Development Board, which I really enjoyed. And again, I grew up here. I have 2 of my 3 children that live here. The other one's in London. And it was really a cool place to raise your kids. You know, relatively safe. They're still friends with people they went to elementary and high school with. So am I, which is unusual in this particular day and age. And I've seen a lot of changes over my many years in the city. I've seen it grow, and I've seen things go down another path when Queensbury and the mall opened up. And it's been wonderful to see what's been happening over the last 20 to 25 years. It's just a charming, charming city with wonderful architecture in the neighborhoods. And anything that I can do to be of help in any way, shape, or form, I'd love to do, because I am retired and I'm bored. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Word 3, Connie Bussey.
Connie Bossick in Ward 3. I grew up in Warrensburg and graduated from ACC, I'll always call it ACC, and left town for 40 years. And I'll tell you what I did. But then I retired in 2013 and was lucky enough to move back home, which I love living here. But I was able to build a house over in Knox Lane. You may remember the old Naval Reserve. I do not remember the Naval Reserve. But the Michael's group that I was able to build a nice house. And so I have very fond memories of Glens Falls, because we were a kid and came to Glens Falls to go shopping. And I would go to Woolworths and I would get my food soda and have a lovely time. So when I left ACC, I went off and worked in higher education administration. I was an administrative dean for academic programs. So I got my bachelor's at Boston University, and I got a bachelor's in urban planning, of which, long story, I won't bore you with why I did that professionally, so I did not, but I really loved that. And then I did it. So as I say, 40 years when I came back, I'm with you. I think Nancy, this city is just, it's fabulous. I'm proud of it, and I'm really honored to be part of this committee, and I hope that my abilities will add value to the process.
Thank you very much. Word 4, Robin Martinet.
Hi, I am president of the Glens Falls Collaborative. I actually live in Ward 2, but my business is in Ward 4, and Ben Lapham and I are old friends and running mates, and he won and I lost, and he felt bad. So he got me on this. I was on the urban renewal, and so I had to resign from that to do this, but this really interests me. Actually, I've been thinking about charter reform in general since like 2001, 2002, back when I first ran. I remember reading through it. I gotta go find to see if I can find my old notes on it. But this is a great asset we can do, not just for being compliant, but it's it's good to have it be fair for everybody. And again, so Ben and all the people before him in Ward 4 have been underrepresented. Well, actually, or what do you say, overrepresented? I can see
Word 4, under.
right. But, so, yeah, I look forward to this. Oh, yeah, I own 42 degrees. I own a couple houses. I've been living here about 20, 25 years here and there. And, yeah, just look forward to getting to work.
You are a Green Bay Packers.
I am a Green Bay Packers fan, yes. And you didn't get my quarterback. We won't talk about that.
Word 5, Lee Brett.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lee brags, and I presently live in the 5th Ward. A little about my background, I was just passing through some 45, 47 years ago, and lo and behold, I'm still here. I find Glens Falls to be a very excellent place to have a family and raise children. That's why I'm still here. And I dove into city duties by your father, Vincent DeSantis, appointed me to the Water and Sewer Board way back then. Along with Roy Thomas, and I was hanging out with the wrong people, that's why. But I am retired. I'm married with 4 children. They are grown and grown, of course. Recently a grandfather. I retired from the great state of New York after 38 years of service at Great Medical Correctional Facility. I'm presently first vice president of the Glens Falls branch of NAACP. I have been a part of this organization since I first became a product of Glens Falls. And I've held all the offices, president, vice president, second, third, fourth, secretary, treasurer, you name it, I did it. And I'm also head of the original Glens Falls Community Garden, have been for the past 25, 30 years, give or take. And really enjoy doing that. And also, I'm presently on the board of trustees of SUNY Adirondack. I have been for just before the pandemic, so for the last 2.5 years or so. And I'm looking forward. I did participate in a lot of other committees, a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm looking forward to this. This is new. This is something different for me, so I'm looking forward to my input wherever I can, and listening to you. And I sound like you guys kind of got a grasp on what's going on. I am familiar with some of the boundaries and of the wards, mainly the 5th Ward. Roy and I did walk, kind of drove through them years ago, but it's been a while since I actually took a look at them. So this is going to be interesting and a learning process for me. So I look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank all of you. We've got a pretty good blend of experience and education here. As I said, my name is Bob Curtis. For my background, I have a master's degree from SUNY Plattsburgh in Administration and Leadership. I was with the city, retired in December of last year for 37 years, 27 as city clerk, 10 years prior to that, mayor's assistant. I was in radio, news, and public affairs for about 10 years before that. I'd like to think that the mayor selected me as the chair, mainly because of my background as the city clerk. As the city clerk, per the city charter, the clerk is responsible for maintaining and updating not only the city code, but the city charter, which means that all local laws, all resolutions that have to go into either one of those categories are done on an annual basis. I think I played a key role in getting the city charter and the city code on our electronic website. That was, I think, a major coup for the city, and it's terrific to have a website with the ability for the citizens to go on the website to pull any section of the code or charter, print it out, and do that. For about the last 15 years or so, up until my retirement, I probably wrote 90% of the city's local laws. I was city clerk in 1997 when the city did a recodification of the code. In 2000 and 2003, when the city looked at amending the city charter, not revising it, but amending it, 2 differences there. I was involved with that. One of those propositions went to the voters in the form of a mandatory referendum, which this is going to. So how did we get to this point? Through the years, there had been attempts to try to get the ward boundaries changed or some type of redistricting. They failed for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Last year in October, the city received an email from a Glens Falls attorney who said that the city was not in compliance with the one person, one vote principle. And the attorney said that something should be done quickly, could be done easily. At the time when I was city clerk, I emailed the council and the mayor, and I said that because it was October of 2021, nothing could be done last year. But it could certainly be revisited in 2022. Here we are. Upon taking office in January of this year, Mayor Bill Collins immediately said that he wanted to do ward boundary changes as a solution to the redistricting. And I think that was important because it was a first step for the city to look at this issue, and I think that it sort of put everything in place. So here we are right now. The mayor, council at large, Jim Clark, and I worked on a proposal for adopting the redistricting task force, the duties of the committee, and how we would operate. Our charge is very simple. As I think I said before the meeting started, and I'll repeat it, in 1964, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that every citizen, regardless of citizen location, has a right to equal legislative representation. And that means that every district should have within a 10% figure, 10%, no more than a 10% difference from one district to another. And there are disparities in the city's ward populations. We went to, the 2020 census was released, I think, in around April of last year. And when we got those results, we looked at the figures here and realized, and that's in your handout, that Ward 1 population is 2,554, Ward 2 over 3,800, Ward 3 over 3,700, Ward 4 1,800 plus, Ward 5 2,700 plus. What we did was took the population for 2020, which is 14,830, we divided it by 5, the 5 city wards, and we come up with an average of 2,966. So if we were to have all 5 wards equal, that's what we would have for 5 wards. Now, to do that, in reality, we can't come up with the exact 2,966 figure. But our thought is that if we can get within that 10% range, well within that 10% range, I think we're in good shape. So that's something that we're going to work on here. I spoke with Ryan Moore, who is the Warren County Administrator today, and Councilman Clark also spoke with Ryan in the past, and he has assured us that the county will help us in any way possible. Our best way to approach this is to go to Warren County Planning. They have geographic information services. They have digital mapping. Sarah Frankenfeld at GIS will be helping us out in this endeavor. So I think the first thing for us to do is to take the figures that we have and this map, which Nancy, you have. We've got to look at that and see how we can work, changing these ward district boundaries to try to get within that 2966 figure. If you look at the wards, we're trimming back Ward 2, we are trimming back Ward 3, and we've really got to increase Ward 4, Ward 1. So it's probably something that I'm thinking from a county standpoint with what they have in 2020 census information, it could probably at least be initially looked at rather quickly. I know the census information has population figures that go from block to block. That on this corner, there are 6 people living here. Next door to that, there are 4, 8, whatever. So it's, as Robin said earlier, it's mathematics. And that's what we're going to have to do. We also have to keep in mind that we have Ward 2 and Ward 3 council members and supervisors who live there. We don't want to cut them out of representation of their particular wards. I had a concern earlier about community development, and I know that on the last page of what I handed you was a map which showed in pink this section of Ward 3 as community development, block grant, CDBG, low mod areas. I didn't think that we wanted to cut that up. However, I was informed by our community development office a couple of days ago that it doesn't matter to CD how that's what happens. Because CD will operate on its own, whether something is in Ward 3, Ward 4, or whatever. That low mod area is a low mod area in the story. So that's a pretty good thing for us. So the main thing that we have to look for is not getting into the areas where our elected representatives are. I don't know if anybody has any questions at this point.
I have a second, so low and moderate, it's in my neighborhood, it's very interesting. So what does this actually mean? So when we say low and
They're
moderate.
entitlement areas, okay?
Meaning,
And meaning that if somebody needs something, or if there's money from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, federal government, it can flow into that area for that specific need. If you're out of the area, you're not entitled to whatever it is that there may be an offering for. But in this, and I think that, the block grant boundaries are not going to be affected, so we're in pretty good shape there. I wanted to go back, I'm sorry.
So you're saying we want to keep that in?
Well, here's the thing, I don't know how anybody else feels. Community development says it doesn't matter. So, if you look at these maps, if you look at the map, and I'm sorry that it's very crude, I did this, so it's crude. Lee, if you look at that, like Ward 3, it would be probably easier, I'm guessing, to increase Ward 4 going up almost, across the boundaries till we reach that point where we've got the numbers that we need, as opposed to trying to cut it off in another way.
I mean, and we'll dig into this eventually. So I see the low number in any district would be 2770, that would be within your 10%.
Is it? Okay.
And I think one more step beyond what you said, we want to give, take some from Ward 1, or take some from Ward 2 and give it to Ward 1, and Ward 3 and give it to Ward 4. But the disparities, we would still need, I think, give some of Ward 2 back to Ward 3. So I think you could do that without affecting that block grant area. But I'd have to see those numbers.
So here's where the mathematical people on this committee come in handy. And that's, seriously, I think that looking at some proposals, maybe for our next meeting, might be an idea of how do we think it's best, just based upon this, we don't have the actual numbers for each ward yet, but looking at what would be a better way to do this. Because I think once we have that, then we can take that up to the county and see if it can be an easy fix or not, because they have the 2020 census tract info. I think that's probably a way to go. I just wanted to go through, I should have done it earlier, but the rules for the independent redistricting committee here, if I could. This is our charge from the mayor and the common council. We are required to create a plan for the redrawing of the city's 5-ward boundaries, taking into account various federal and state constitutional and statutory requirements, including whether the new ward lines would result in the prohibited denial or abridgment of racial or language minority voting rights. I don't know how anyone feels about that. I don't think in what we are doing, which is simply trying to come up with something to satisfy one person, one vote principle, I don't think that it affects that. I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees with me.
we don't have the data to show it would, right? I mean, our data
Right.
is strictly,
Right.
we don't know who was
Yeah.
there for the person.
Right, and to us, it doesn't matter.
So this data we're going to get from the county with the numbers, it doesn't show race, right?
No.
Or
There's not something we'll even see to be able to.
Correct.
So we're gonna be looking at the information, by, you said by block, or like this section
Yeah.
of Ward 3, for instance, we'll have that composition information.
Yeah, now here's the thing, I don't know because I haven't been up to the county. I would hope that it's much more sophisticated than my concept of it. I hope that they have the digital mapping capabilities. If, however, they can print out large maps for us, that would be good. Then we could have the large maps here, we can all pour over them and see what we're dealing with. And we probably have a little bit of time to do that. But I would also like to, if I could, and I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer also, at her discretion, Sarah Frankenfeld from Warren County GIS, speak to her directly. I don't know whether she would be able to come to the next meeting or not. It would be nice. If she couldn't, to see what they have, what they can give us, so that we can get started.
So this is not public information that's online or at the census information?
Well,
The census-
there's census tract data that the U.S. Census Department has, and I've gone through the past years looking at various things. Whether there was a map that would show in Ward 5, for example, what the population is on this particular block or another one, I don't know. I imagine it is. It's all public information. It's been tabulated and so forth. But we're going to need some real maps, and more than one, so that we can get our pencils or our coloring. And we're doing it again on a logical basis of the numbers and nothing else. So that's just a thought, and I throw that one out there. Continuing, to the extent practical, wards containing as nearly as may be equal number of inhabitants, yes. Wards should continue to include a portion of the central business district if practicable. Is it practicable? District lines should be drawn only using population data. Okay, that's what we're doing. But if you look at this crude map again, when you get down to the central business district, right where all the 5 wards converge, if we can keep those in place, then we haven't messed with the central business district, which is nice. From that standpoint, all council members through the history of the council have always wanted to have some type of influence in the central business district instead. And if we can keep that way, it makes a lot of sense. So that is my thought. I don't know how anyone else feels. After this is done, if we can get through, let me just carry this out a little bit. If we can get through coming up with a map that we all agree on, that Warren County can then print and make copies for us, copies for them, and a couple of other departments at the county, the next step for us is to take that information, the actual ward changes, the numbers, and put that into what we have to do is come up with wording text for the change of the ward divisions, because the ward division boundaries are then going to change. My thought, and if you want to have a resolution on this at a future meeting, my thought is if Warren County cannot do that, take the actual numbers and put that into a wording context that would ultimately go into the charter, or would go into our local law, is that we seek help from an outside authority, perhaps Van Dusen and Steves as somebody who can take that, quickly write up something new, somebody double check that, then we have that done. Once that is done and the mapping is done, then we go to a proposed local law. And the proposed local law, because I've written a few, I have one drafted. So hopefully, but we'll get to the point where everybody can look at it. If everybody on the committee agrees it's okay, then that's good. But just wanted to say again that the local law is subject to a mandatory referendum. And what that means is that we are doing a job for the Common Council. We provide the council with our findings and our proposed local law with a proposition for the voters, turn it over to the council. They pass a local law subject to the mandatory referendum in November. So ultimately, it's up to the voters. Voters could say no. If they say no, I haven't gotten to that point.
If they say no,
Run.
my theory is if we communicate really well,
Right.
everybody is, what I love about this group, now that I kind of know you, is that it's a very transparent group, there's no secrets, you're
No.
on YouTube. Everybody can see what we're doing, but I think at the end of the day here, this is a positive for the city, and there should be no problem with referendum whatsoever.
It's an absolute positive.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's how we
Yeah.
explain it and how we
Right.
remember it.
I mean, I would hope that people who read across the nation, you know, there's an argument here in a congressional district for gerrymandering. This has nothing. There is no pain for anybody on this, none. The pain is for us sitting here. I'm joking, but
So the language would have to change for every
For every
profession.
Yes. Yes.
It's almost like a-
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
And that would be included in the proposed local law along with the proposition. And the proposition has to be in the form of a question. Shall the city of Glens Falls, redraw district line boundaries effective January 2023? Yes or no? And they vote yes, it passes, and then it takes effect in 2023. Now, because of that, it's not a problem to us, but it's something that has a side problem for Warren County, is that the Board of Elections is then going to have to, in November, the day after this passes, they are going to have to realize that they've got to do some changes for the wards for people who are voting. So they've got a lot of work to do, because if I was voting in Ward 3, I'm now voting in Ward 4 or whatever. But they can do it because they would have several months to do that before the next election. And also, it would affect the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors would have to realize, okay, now the weighted vote for the city's 5 supervisors has changed. They've got to restructure that. Whether that changes the overall Board of Supervisors vote or just affects supervisors within the city context, I don't know, but those are two things that would happen from this. But there's no turning back from this. Earlier, before the mayor decided to go with the ward boundaries, there's another way that you can do redistricting, and that is by weighted vote. The mayor did not want to consider that. Weighted vote would have been weighted vote of setting that up for the common council. That because you are in Ward 3, you have the most clout, you have a larger weighted vote than somebody in Ward 1. So then you don't
That
have
sounds
equal
Yeah,
votes.
that's
where
right.
it's set up.
Exactly. You're not objecting anymore.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. So, and the other thing with this, and it was talked about by both the mayor and council at large Clark, is that some assurance that every 10 years when the census, when the census figures come out, that this is reviewed. And we can put that in there, that if the mayor and the council look at the new census figures, they're within that 10% range, nothing has changed, good, all done. If there is a change for one of the wards or something, back to the drawing board for that, and go through the same process. But at least at that point, we would be current, nobody can object to anything we're doing, and I think we would be in pretty good shape. So, I don't know if anybody has any
You don't have to worry
questions.
about the mayor's ward, right?
What's that?
You don't have to worry about taking the mayor out of his own ward?
No, we wouldn't want to do that.
No, I plan to.
Wow,
I mean, it's just, again, it's simple math. It's like,
it is.
it would come right down
It
Hunter
is.
Street and I would put him in
Yeah.
one. But,
So, if everybody's agreed, I will speak with Sarah Frankenfeld tomorrow and see if we can get some large maps. That would be nice. Bring those to the next meeting. And it'll be more like a workshop than anything else. And maybe at the same time, if she could start working on something, if she has the numbers that we have, maybe it's easier than that, maybe it isn't. Maybe the county says, here you go, figure it out. Then we have a couple of hard weeks to do this. But I think we can do it because we have people who like figures.
How's Robert doing? I mean, this is a great.
Excited.
Well, from here down.
I think we really do have to get numbers.
Yeah,
Because you might have a bulk of the population in one certain
That
area.
is
or
true,
whatever.
right, yeah.
I may be
So
totally
you
Right,
can't just
right,
draw a line.
right,
because
right.
You can't.
Exactly.
Well, and
It's
when
not
there's
that.
development in the
Yeah.
board where all of a sudden the population can increase by 200 because
Exactly.
it's developed.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly,
Right.
right, and I'm going up in Ward 3, so.
So getting the numbers of people, and if there is such a thing that shows where the bulk of the people live, the numbers, I think that would be a big help to us, particularly in making sure that we have a relatively equal number in each ward.
So I'm gonna ask a stupid question, but it's.
There are no stupid questions.
Okay, thank you.
Give no permission, none.
No. So do we think that the 14,000 population is from the census, do we think that's real? Do we think that Glens Falls has more than 14,000? Do we think that our,
I have no idea. I mean, I've read pro and con through the years of that, you know,
That's not
you
following
missed,
the
in
census.
some city, you missed an entire segment of people, they were working or whatever. I
so
don't
the
know.
question's gonna be, does the county, so for example, if you look at the street, does the county, because of deeds and other things, no, so when we find out indeed that, you know, that these numbers are not real because the county.
Well, I would think, and this is my thought, is that what the county is operating on are those 2020 census figures. So whether, you know, whether it's true or not, or the population's higher or lower, that's what they were given by the US federal government, and that's
Well,
what
it
we're
has
working
to be in that form.
Yeah.
Or that sort of,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
I didn't mention when we were talking at the beginning that I'm a real estate broker, but I use a lot
Full
of.
disclosure.
Yeah, I totally was all Twitter figured about doing my thing about who I am and where I come from. But in any event, I use a lot of information that's online and from the counties, different counties about things, what I'm doing, all kinds of my work.
Mhm.
And so you do know where the buildings are, and you do know who the owners are, and of course you don't know how many people live in that building.
Right, right.
But you can, you know, sort by all kinds of information.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that that information is plugged in, within, like an overlay, so to speak,
Right,
before 2 or 3,
Yeah.
that we can put on top of one's walls and say, you know, so.
Does anyone want to, as we're talking about this, see if we can get a meeting with Sarah Frankenfeld up at the county? And come along, maybe a few of us or something like that?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Would all of you like to?
Well,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking, sure, so I know, we're out from the work, so.
It would probably be better if she came down here than actually, but.
Let me see if she can come here at the next meeting.
Next meeting?
Okay, if she can't,
Yeah.
let's see if we can set something up to go up there.
Okay.
And yes,
That happens to be a problem for me.
okay.
Thursdays are a problem for me.
Okay.
My trustee meetings are.
Oh, yeah, I wondered if anybody had any problems with it.
Thursday at 6, is that that?
Yeah. Well, this coming Thursday at 6 is bad because there's a trustee meeting. and
Okay.
That stuff, that works out afterwards.
Yeah,
But
okay,
normally, we're still done by 5 o'clock,
all right,
so it wouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
But this coming Thursday, it would be a problem.
okay. I know from the setup of the meeting, we need 5 people to have, you know, a legal meeting. And the majority of these 7 is a will approve a resolution. Do we need a resolution on any of this stuff, or you want to just informally have me call Sarah? I can do whatever you would like.
I don't think we need a resolution.
Okay.
I don't think we would.
It's not that.
I know when I'm gonna be away, I have a wedding on May 12th, and possibly the 19th. But
Okay.
I can let you know, I already know that now, so.
So are there people that aren't here that we're expecting to be here? You said something about 7.
7 people.
Oh, including you?
Yes, yes.
But-
I always like to be.
The numbers people.
Right,
Oh, okay.
right.
So there are 7 number of people.
Okay, so I will see if Sarah can attend the next meeting. And if she can't, if she can give us some maps.
And I'm happy to go with it, if you pay us to, you know.
I won't be here, please give me a 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And at least 7 maps, maybe some more.
Yes,
So we can all,
yeah, I don't know.
know.
That's the only reason it should be a problem, but other than that, the rest of it should be pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that if we can convey what we need Sarah, keeping in mind, and Robin, you said for Ward 2, you thought that perhaps Peter McDevitt and Bob
We'll say it here. Yeah, I don't want to see it look good.
Yeah.
And you know where the other people.
I have their addresses. I don't know where it is.
That was for the
I
asking.
Yes, plot those and.
I can do that for you.
Okay, okay,
Give me their address.
yeah, I will do that. Okay,
I mean, I think a lot of it's gonna depend on where the heaviest set of people lives in each of
yes,
these wards.
that's an excellent point.
Based on where we're gonna draw lines.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it may not be a straight across.
No,
Right.
they're not,
No.
right, you know?
Right. Right.
And I know some
Even
people
right now,
that are
you see
councilmen, and I'm just
Ward
gonna
one
say,
kind of
whatever
cut
I
off
have
all
to
these
say, regardless of who I know.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they're a councilman or
Right.
supervisor, I don't care.
Right.
This is about redistricting, not about the people
Correct.
that hold office.
Yeah,
Right.
So my brother-in-law's gonna kill me, but that's too bad.
well, you know,
My sister, he's living with my sister, he's getting the same thing. Oh my God, she's tough. Remember when you were? No?
Yeah.
Oh, I tell him that
You
all
got a
the
weak
time.
butt?
I would say that to his face.
But otherwise, it's very nice.
Yes, he's fabulous. I love your sister, she's fabulous. Thank you, she is, she's great, but my brother-in-law made over my foot with his Jeep. Oh, there you go. You don't need to put that in. It's true. Oh, yeah, it's a slide. Yeah, I said you waited 40 years to do it. So, yeah, we'll throw him in.
is there anything else that anybody wants to think of? That,
I'm just thinking of the apartment complexes that have gone up across from Hannaford and the one that's going up on the Rose Avenue. It used to be a Rose Gardens, you've got, you know, that going up, they're not.
You mean
But
cutting
the Rose population was probably factored into this because they were all probably still there.
So would it be the same,
Is it the
similar number?
Good with that, yeah.
Right, so that'd be pretty
And
close.
either way, I think you would have those numbers, what the difference is in how many, I think they give at a few new
We
apartments.
could find out.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
could find out.
But you're right, the one on Broad Street.
One on Broad Street is new.
Yeah.
Yes, that must have been 2020.
People that now live down,
Yeah.
Downtown.
You get, yeah, 14 months.
They should have had.
Yeah,
every time.
All the downtown has
Should have been.
increased so much. And now they were all, pretty
Mill,
much.
yeah.
Mill has been there, and Warren Street, Warren Street has been there. I think most of them have, I think the people that are redoing some of the downtown buildings and taking a look at the second and third floors, and once they solve the problem on the second exit, I can't tell you how many people I know that would love to live downtown, especially those of us that grew up here. It's just so wonderful.
Yes.
And you walk around and you know everybody. I think it's, I don't know where else we can grow a population in the city. We don't have any more land. I think it's gonna be very difficult.
Hopefully Panaccio comes through, we get all those new apartments.
That's how it's gonna be.
So I guess the last thing to talk about is the timeframe to implement all of this. When I went before the council there 3 weeks ago, I told them, I thought that for something to go to the Board of Elections to be put on the November 8th election ballot, they need these propositions 3 months prior, which means August 8th.
3 months?
Yes. And usually, when we do a local law, because you have to publish legal ads and have public hearings, there's probably at least a 6-week window on that. Prior to that, that pushes us back about, I'm guessing, mid-June. So if we can get this,
Yeah.
if we can get this to, the council, and I wanted it to go to the city attorney to review it and say thumbs up, and we're okay, then we're in good stead. The other thing is that I think that it's important because it's not only in what the mayor and council set up, but we have, Peter doing this for YouTube and so forth, but keeping the public apprised of what's going on. And I think at some point, whether we do or we do in joint, operation with the common council, we should have a public hearing on this.
Absolutely.
To explain how we arrived at what we did, and even if the council has signed off on that, support goes to local law, so that everybody agrees that, you know, we agreed on what we were doing, and the council agreed with our actions as well.
Right.
And then everybody knows it's been above board, it's been for one purpose, and we should be in pretty good shape.
Maybe we could put little blurbs on the website.
Excellent idea.
Well, I think that the average person just needs to know, how does this affect me? What does this mean to me, just me personally? What does it mean? I mean, one of my thoughts was, does this have anything to do with the school district? It doesn't, correct?
Right?
Completely opposite.
Has nothing to do with anything
But
other
a person might think that,
Right.
and especially in Abraham Lincoln School
What does
District.
it mean, maybe you might have to go
Voting.
voting?
Yeah.
Just
Well,
about
but
it.
if-
Yeah,
if-
right,
if I-
right,
if I keep it that
And you
simple
might
and
have a
that
different
direct.
representative next time around, and you might have a choice in any representative.
Yeah.
But the good thing, and I said that to you, I think, when I sent you an email a week or so ago, we only may be together for a couple of months, but what we're doing is going to last for a long, long time. We
And
would
so
write,
each Thursday, do you think it's?
I'd like to do that,
You know,
I don't think so. I think what we've got to do is sort of, you know, this is what, last week of April almost, we've got May.
I mean,
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
can
it's
coach
gonna be
that.
cool.
Yeah.
The math, right.
I'm happy to do it a
Just go over it.
couple times a week.
Yeah, thank
If
you.
you guys need to, you know,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself, so a
Yeah.
couple times a week is
Yeah.
fine with me.
And if we call the next meeting a workshop or
If need be,
whatever.
right,
so-
right, right.
I mean, we can even divide into
Yeah.
little groups.
Sure,
And then get
absolutely.
together on a Thursday night, each
Sure.
one get their
Sure.
report and put it together.
Good point. Excellent.
So,
The numbers, we need the numbers.
yes.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. That's all that I have. I don't know if anyone else has anything.
So we're gonna be again next.
Next Thursday at 6 p.m. You will not be
Um,
here. But if we have 6 members, we're still.
Or maybe you can watch it on
Yeah, a day or so later.
If we are not here, can we link in?
You can link in, but here's the thing, you can't vote. You cannot,
Oh, so if there's a vote that evening.
right, there's,
Okay.
voting is not something you can do if you're not here at the
Probably won't be that soon.
That was gonna say,
Yeah.
you will vote,
Yeah,
yes, no,
yeah, I'll
there was
be
gonna be a vote.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Well,
And I'd like to vote a consensus of what we all agree on for this, consensus of what we all agree on in terms of the wording for the change of the word district, consensus on the proposed local
Who's
law.
writing the wording?
I'm sorry,
Who writes the wording? The county writes the wording?
for the local law, we will do that. I already have.
For the charter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, the chart, here's what happens. The local law goes to the council, it's approved, filed with the state. The city clerk will take that information, send it to our code publishers, who will then extract the data that needs to be extracted and put it into a change for the chart. So it's not word for
But
word.
we don't have to rewrite this.
No, that will have to be
It
rewritten,
will have to be written, but not by us.
correct. We are going to get somebody
We're gonna
else.
do- we're gonna do the streets.
I'm
Yeah.
math, I'm not.
If you want to start saying dense easterly and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Now, the good thing is, this isn't an entire city, boundary thing, where you get into the minutes and whatever, that's tough. But, so, this shouldn't be too bad, because basically, you're not changing the fifth word, you're changing the first word.
Right, the other four, it shouldn't be.
Excellent. I thank all of you for attending the meeting.
You'll let us know.
I will let you know. I'll see whether Sarah can attend, and if she can attend, bring as many maps as she can.
Okay.
And we can ask her all kinds of questions. I think it's a perfect time to do it. And if she can't attend, if we go up to the county and we get maps, we still have to ask a million questions.
Sure.
So the more the merrier. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.